Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the March 7th Board of Trustees meeting for the Village of Lansing, and we're starting our meeting at 7:35. Our first topic tonight is a public comment period, so I invite any member of the public who has a topic that is not already on our agenda to speak. So just raise your hand or speak up. Okay, hearing none, I would need a motion and a second to close the public comment period.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. Simon. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our next topic is to approve stormwater training for our code officer. Mike, what type of stormwater training is this?
Can I share the screen, please?
Yeah, just a brief thing. Yeah.
Okay. There's one on April 6th that goes through the seeker developmental process. That would be somewhat of a review, but there are some new developments on how to handle certain seekers anymore. The April 27th, there's a stormwater filtration and infiltration practices, which I think is very beneficial because we do actually get an awful lot of, like tonight, heavy rains. There's possibility of having infiltration and how we can kind of prevent that from happening. May 18th is all of the new updates on the MS4 permit, which is almost essential for me to go through. And there's one in June 8th. It's for the SWIP preparation and review, which is basically what Brent does now. But if I can do a lot of that stuff, it may lift the burden from the village having to, not that Brent does a great job, but lift the burden of having to pay Brent to go do a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
Those are the 4 meetings. It is steep. It's 175 a meeting. I know that's quite a bit for training, but this is the only place I know of around here, and they're doing it by Zoom too. So it's not like I have to go to Syracuse or drive anywhere. So this is actually kind of a win-win here. Yeah,
it sounds like it's a good thing, and all those topics are important to us. So I think that's a good thing. I just wanted clarification. I'm for approving. All those who would approve.
Yeah,
Randy.
I agree.
I'll second.
No, I was going to make a movement. I agree.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, Simon.
I'm all for it.
Okay.
I think any extra education that Mike does is awesome, and even if it just creates redundancy between him and Brent, or takes a burden off Brent.
It's not redundancy, it's backup.
There you go. Yep. Got a word.
All right.
Well, just to mention it, between the codes that I do, the zoning and the stormwater, since I've been here, the stormwater has kind of been neglected a little bit, and I'd like to be able to get that caught up. So that's kind of another reason for it.
Yeah, it's feeling more and more like it's going to become increasingly become important to the village and everyone that's around us. So I think it's good. It's good timing, Mike. So you're good to go. All right.
You need to do a vote of everyone.
Oh, do we have to do a motion and so forth? And
Randy and
Randy
Pat.
moved.
And I second.
And Pat seconded. So all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's all unanimous. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Mike. Let us know if you pass.
No, that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, you gotta pass. Or you pay for it yourself. Sorry.
Okay, deal.
Next topic is to consider the Ithaca Apartments Management and Northwood Apartment request to waive late fees from October 2021. Jody, can you give us a little brief synopsis of what this is about?
Yeah, there are 21 accounts for the Ithaca Apartments and Northwood Apartments. They've never been late before, and they've asked the village to remove the penalty as a one-time courteous because they were actually only one day late, and they've never been late before.
Okay. How much was the late fee?
There's 21 accounts. I didn't add it up.
Oh, so you
They're
didn't.
all
add-
around $300,
Okay,
$300. Yep.
all right. So this is a one-time thing. So we're keeping a record of all of these one-time things, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And based on, I would say based on our last meeting, we had a discussion regarding this about somebody else. And we kind of said that we would, make a one-time exception. So based on that, I would make a motion that we accept it.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I would second it. Just one quick thing, Jody. I'm just interested to know, does this ever create extra work on you? Any extra time?
What I do is I just send it to Bolton Point, and they do the adjustments and send the adjustments back to me. And then it's just a journal entry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think we've had the precedent before. The first time, 1 or 2 days late
Okay.
is okay.
Again, can I just ask
Sure,
something? When you tell them it's a first time, do you tell them it's a first time waiver so they know that in future?
First time, one time. Yep.
Okay.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Randy's voted too. Okay. So we've waived that late fee, Jody. Okay, it's a little past 7:35, but we need a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed local law A 2022, the lighting law. I will move that. Would someone second it?
Second.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, did everyone have a chance to look at this local law? We've discussed it, but there were some inputs from the county through their 239 review. And Mike, do we have to include those changes, or we can decide not to include them with a super majority? Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. You can, I don't know whether John Courtney's on here. I sent it over to John also. He's on the lighting commission, but he knows a lot more about the, the output and the lumens, the kelvins of the lights that we have in the projected law. We've got 3,000 Kelvin in there. And if you read through what the GML 239, they recommend a maximum of 2,700 Kelvin, which has less of a blue light. They're saying that blue light in the evening is damaging to, I guess, mental and physical health of human beings. So if that's what I take from what they are, their description of what they recommend. If John Courtney is on here, I spoke with him earlier. I won't speak for him unless he's not, if he can't hear us. Is there John Courtney on there? Is that John's?
Hey, Mike. How
Hey,
you doing, bud?
You want to let the Board of Trustees know how you feel about this, please?
Yeah, 2,700 Kelvin is the more orangey light. It's almost impossible to buy any fixtures. They claim it's commercially practical to purchase them. It's not. It's very difficult. I did a lot of research on it, and when Mike was telling me about it, it's very difficult to get them. I think the bar, normal people were happy with 4,000 Kelvin, and setting the standards a little bit more difficult to get at the 3,000, which is healthier for the human body, is reasonable, and that's a little bit more stricter than the 4,000. So I think 3,000 Kelvin is good.
What are our LED lights right now?
Most of them in the village they vary between 4,000 and 3,000.
Okay.
3,000's not common. It's where we want to go with the lighting commission. Like I said, it's healthier on the people, and it doesn't have so much reflectiveness to it or all that stuff.
Okay.
Do you know what's on Northwoods at the moment, John? Because that's the one that I see the most, so I can compare to.
I'm pretty sure the first half is 4,000 Kelvin. The second half is 3,000 Kelvin, because we really learned a lot over the last few years with it, and we're trying to bleed off to the 3,000. They're actually 3,000 Kelvin are actually more difficult to get, and they raised the price up. I just recently priced fixtures. They went up from $240 to $340 just by changing that from 4 to 3,000. So the lights down on the Highgate path behind those houses connecting from Highgate to Savannah Park are 3,000 Kelvin. It's typically a high pressure sodium versus a metal halide is what it is. Metal halide's a whiter light.
Do we have any public who would like to comment on this proposed law? I can't see everyone on my screen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. How are you? This is Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
Good evening to everyone. That is really good idea of the lights, but I still haven't been able to get some sort of action towards the light behind where I live. It does not belong to CSP management. It is a Lansing part of it because there's a cutoff. And if it's a possibility, if they can put some lights behind there also as they do with the others, would be very helpful.
Okay. That is a little off our topic, Samantha, but would you do me a favor and send me an email? I think you have my email address, and make that request again, and we can check into it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, I would need a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you, Randy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Pat. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, the next step for this is to go through our short EAF. Mike, can you pull that up and go through it for us?
Has everyone seen a copy of part one? I sent it over to Jody, and I believe she sent it out to everyone. If you read through it, I didn't know whether you had any questions. It's basically, it's standard. If you want to go down through it, Mr. Mayor, that's up to you.
I'm just looking. I didn't see it in my attachments, but it's easily lost within all of the attachments I received. There's nothing unusual about this request, is there?
No, the only item that you and I went over was, if we get down towards 12,
Right.
If there's an archaeological site,
Right.
and then also if there's a historic preservation, or if there's a historic site.
Right.
Basically that came up, yes, because I had to use, when you put it in for the whole municipality, you end up using the EAF mapper, and it basically spits out answers to a few of these. And number 12 is actually one of them. It's not uncommon if they talk about an archaeological site. It has come up on an EAF mapper for a short EAF on a few of the projects that have been done near the cliff sides of the lake. One of them was, I believe, the tram. When we had one of the trams come through, the EAF had kicked out that there was an archaeological site there. So I don't know exactly what it is, but this is all predetermined by the state, and as they map everything out. The other historical, well, the one historical site that seems to keep kicking up is there's a cemetery, two of them. One of them is everyone knows about down at Burdick Hill. It's if you drive down Burdick Hill towards East Shore, you look to the left, and above the gorge, you'll see cemetery there. There's also another cemetery that's very small. If you go west Graham Road, before you hit Ring Road, there's a parcel on your left that also has a small cemetery there. Now, from all of the other EAFs I've gotten, I've kind of narrowed it down to, I think that's what they're describing as historical areas.
Right.
So that's the best way for me to explain that.
Yeah, that's what you had explained to me earlier too. So nothing that would be really impacted severely by a lighting law.
No. If there's a couple choices here, if you agree and to everything that's written on here, you can go through part 2 and part 3, or you can wait to go through a resolution, which will tell you to go through part 3. Either one, they both have to be done. The resolution we don't have tonight, but we do have the part 2 ready.
Okay,
That's completely up to you.
okay. We could do a resolution at our next meeting, I think, and go through part 3. Since the resolution is, can we go through part 3 and then do a resolution, or do we have to go through part 3 before a resolution?
You'll basically agree that you've gone through part 1. It'll tell you to fill out part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you vote on part 2 being correct, it'll tell you that you can now sign part 3.
Line part 3. Okay.
It's less complicated than I made it.
Right. Let's put that off for another meeting, and we'll have a resolution because we've got a fairly busy agenda tonight.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest. If anyone disagrees, please let me know. Okay. So that will be pushed to our next meeting, resolution, and go through parts 2 and 3. All right. The next topic is TCAT discussion on bus shelter. Is Megan here? Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
Is it okay then if I leave at this stage, if you don't need me for a vote?
I don't think we have any more votes.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, enjoy the meeting. I have to go.
It's
Bye.
okay. Enjoy your
Bye-bye.
evening, Pat.
Thank you.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, Matt.
Okay. We'll see if Megan's on. I know she was having power issues at her house with the storm.
Yeah,
Um,
it's nice.
I am here. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I did have Matt sharing the slides just in case my internet's a little unreliable. So if I do start breaking up, just let me know and I'll have Matt kind of take over.
Okay.
All right. So I think we spoke with pretty much everybody here previously. I think it was actually back in November, so it's been about 5 months already. It's kind of crazy how time flies. But I'm going to go through this relatively quickly since it's probably repetitive for some people anyways. Matt, if you want to just go to the next slide. So this is just a reminder of the location that we're talking about. It's basically the bus shelter that is across the street or next to the Gaslight Village apartment complex. And so Okay, yes. So this is a summary of the ridership. This is the same slide from back in November. Matt, I don't know if you have anything you want to add about how ridership has been trending since the spring semester started.
No, I think spring semester is on par with last fall. I mean, we're probably still about 75% down from pre-COVID levels.
Okay.
Or not 75%, 75% of pre-COVID levels. So, another 25% to go or so.
Okay. All right, so this is just a recap of the current situation, how people, basically the higher ridership at this stop are mostly people heading inbound towards Cornell. So they're riding on the bus that goes in that direction where there's not really a good place to wait. So they're kind of lining up on that narrow strip on the side of the road as the bus comes. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And this is just the approximate location where the shelter would go. It's basically directly across from the entrance to Gaslight Village. And then here's a picture. We were out there last week taking a look at the area. You can see there's still snow on the ground, unlike probably today. And Matt can talk more about that in a second. But this is really just showing that it's hard to tell from a picture. The drop off really is not all of that steep, even with the snow. Oh yeah, and here, Matt, you can go ahead and talk about, these are pictures he took earlier today, I believe.
Yeah, I figured today was actually a really good day to go out and do a site visit, given all the snow melt and rain today, and just see what we could observe in the field in terms of drainage in the area. And so actually, if I go back a slide, I went in from the Route 13 side, and the drainage is clearly on that side of the green belt. You can see the water running there in the ditch. The ditch is full of cattails, indicating that it's wet regularly throughout the year, not just for a month or so. And then there's actually a little bit of a berm on the other side of the ditch, which you can kind of see. I guess if you can see my mouse pointer on the screen, you can kind of see it there behind the cattails. And then from there, it's relatively flat through where the trees are until you get to the fence. So most of this green belt is actually a foot or two higher than the ditch beside Route 13. And then as you get closer to Uptown, there is clearly, a slope off the side of the road, but then once you're down there, it is relatively flat. I was looking for signs of surface flow, anything that would indicate that this part of the green belt, had significant flow throughout the year. I didn't see it today. Basically, the leaves are evenly scattered, which indicates that we haven't had surface flow since the fall. The vegetation isn't cattails or anything that would indicate that any hydrophilic vegetation. So by kind of trampling around in there, I did satisfy myself anyway that in terms of drainage, all of the drainage is probably 20 or 30 feet from this site on the side of Route 13, where you could see active flow today with all the rain. I don't know if there's any questions about that before I move on.
Okay, so when we talked about this previously, we had looked at a slightly different model of this that included sort of the curb, a curb ramp, and a little bit of a sidewalk. We've sort of talked it over with our contractor a little bit since then and returned to sort of a more simple version that he recommended. He thought that, both in terms of cost and ease for the village in terms of maintenance and snow removal and whatnot, this was going to be better. So we essentially, it's back to a version where the shelter would be essentially level with the road. And we're not entirely sure that, once we're out there, the slope is not as great, I think, as it appears here. The railings may not be necessary because we could just sort of taper gravel or dirt up to the edges of the shelter so that it wouldn't be like a fall hazard or anything like that. So this is really kind of what we're considering at this point. And again, there's a proposed crosswalk, which would be, a consideration on on behalf of the village, whether or not they wanted to include that. But it's really a pretty simple pad with a small retaining wall and, the shelter, just to provide people a little bit of space off from this shoulder of the road for waiting. So I think there's maybe only one more image after this, which is just sort of like a section view that you've seen before, I think. And that kind of just shows the distances from the side of the road and to the fence line and whatnot. But I think, you guys had mentioned that there were more questions and you wanted to chat with us about it. So we're happy to hear any more questions that you have.
I actually really like the old design where there was a curb out to the road, because my concern has always been that people don't tend to stay in the bus shelter. They go out close to the road. Everyone's just so eager to get on the bus, and everyone's always eager to get everywhere. They think they're going to get there faster, so they wait right by the road. And when you have two stops directly across from one another, and I've driven through there and seen this, and there's people at the other bus stop, and even though that's set quite away from the road, they're standing right up on the shoulder. And so now if we don't have a curb here, we have the same issue. And then when you're talking about potentially not having the railings, like, I at least like the railings, because that provides some sort of protection for those people with vehicles and maybe gets them to stay back a little further. So without railings, without a curb, it just makes me a little uneasy for cars driving through there with people standing right up to the shoulder. I would feel better, if you were going to get rid of the curb and the railings, to maybe offset those two stops so they're not directly across from one another.
So just as context, I think in terms of the offsetting, the proposed stop would be more in line with the, where the driveway enters into Gaslight, because you need to have, if indeed we do build or paint a crosswalk, you would want that to go to a hard surface on the other side and not to, grass. So they would be somewhat offset, not drastically so. And I think, as we get out there, we can look at a railing. Part of the impetus behind some of these changes is when we brought it to our contractor, he was just like, wow, this is going to be very expensive to do all this. A curb, a ramp, extra railings because you have, an extended ramp that needs a railing on one side. So we were just trying to minimize some of the elements to try to keep the cost down. And clearly, if there is a drop off, we could put a railing. I was just a little, I guess, concerned that if the railing went too close to the shoulder, that anyone who's, drifting onto the shoulder of the road, any vehicle, could potentially hit that, or, maybe a snow plow would clip it. So, we can try to pull that back a little bit towards the shelter. I can't really speak to human behavior in different settings, but I will say that I think people are standing right on the shoulder now because they don't have the option of standing back a little farther. And
I have to say, this seems much safer than the current situation.
When you look at the sight lines, you can see the bus coming around the corner, and there's not like trees and bushes right up on the edge of the road. So even if they're standing in the shelter, they'll be able to see the bus coming. And I think that's a more secure place for people to stand, So I would guess that some of them might be closer to the road, but probably a lot will be used, taking a couple steps back because they're not right next to where the traffic is going.
I think also probably John, is John here today? John would probably also want to say something as to whether the plows would impact a railing. So we should probably confirm that with him before we would go either way with that recommendation.
I am here.
Ah, so what do you think?
I've expressed my opinion of this bus stop. I think the village is taking on a huge liability. I can honestly say that I've ever seen a crosswalk serve the purpose of just a bus stop. Crosswalks are meant to serve more than one purpose, and that's to move pedestrians, not move them on a bus. I do not agree with this design at all and the location of this bus stop. I can't stress it enough how dangerous it is and how much the village is assuming the liability. I wish we could work to alternative areas to pick people up. One of the suggestions that we worked through, Mike, Ronnie, and I have worked through is moving them up to the Dankert Park and do one bus stop up there. We looked at alternative safe routes for pedestrians to move up through the back of the apartments. We talked about that. We talked about possibly having them being picked up down at the intersection of Cinema Drive and Uptown area. Eventually, when the village places a sidewalk down to that point. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
Yeah, so just to follow up on specifically the railing, and let's say hypothetically, and there's a world where this gets built in this location, something similar to this design.
Okay.
Would there be an impact to the plowing if there's a railing there? Would you prefer there not be a railing with regard to plowing? Just that, only that aspect of it.
Okay, yeah, we looked at that too, and the railing would probably not withstand the snow coming off the wing. It will probably be destroyed. So therefore, even if you was to do a nice apron to that bus stop and then taper out and then taper back in to make it so there's more room to stand there, that area there now that's proposed is really not coherent to social distancing standards at all. I mean, it's very little room for as many people as they showed in the picture to stand. So the railing wouldn't last, to answer your question.
But you'd prefer no railing if it got built in this location?
Yep. That is correct.
Okay. I mean, I still take the position that it looks so much safer to me than people standing on the side of the road. So that's how I feel about it.
Are there other comments?
I mean, I would say that's our position as well, is that this is a safety improvement over the current situation. And, you know, we did mention it to our council just to see if she had any input as to liability issues. But this seems like it would be an improvement because it's increasing the safety of the stop. And I'm all for additional pedestrian infrastructure if the village, you know, desires to do that. I think it's extremely compatible with the transit network. But we're trying to, I guess, propose solutions that kind of meet the specific issues that we're seeing in the field. And we're really not in the business of building sidewalks. So.
But I totally agree. I totally agree with you, Matt. But there's the back part of Gaslight Village that currently walk up to the park, and there is integrated walk systems throughout that development. If we could encourage them to be picked up in one location where we have the mechanisms in place to keep it safe. Yes, I don't dispute that anything you do will make this a safer environment for people. But what you're doing is you're creating, by the village allowing that, we're creating a potential liability. There's a lot more to that system that Ronnie and I talked about with Mike. We had the engineers involved. There's a lot more to making that legal for motorists in general too. Right now, the the retaining wall poses as what they call a DFO, which is a deadly fixed object. If a car hits that, they can't ramp, they can't continue on. It's just a blunt area in the right of way for a motorist to hit. So there's a lot wrong with that whole situation. I agree with you. It does make it safer for pedestrians at the current situation, but we have options to make this safer without making any improvements there. And that's to relocate the bus stop.
Well, I guess it's up to the village if they want to approve this or not. So we will be, you know, I think continuing with our submission, and you can make that call.
Any other comments? Randy?
Am I on? I don't remember if I'm
Yeah.
muted or not.
We can hear you, Randy. Now we can't. I think Randy froze. I cannot see everyone on the screen the way it's configured. So if anyone else has a comment, just speak up and give us your name.
Yeah, Matt, this is Simon. You showed the ridership for that gaslight stop. What's the ridership for the stop then up at Danker Park? Do you have that information?
It's similar. I don't have precise numbers, but the last time we looked at it, they were both around. I mean, this is pre-COVID, and you know we fully expect to get back there.
I lost you guys. I'm sorry.
But they're about the same at about 10,000 boardings per year.
Yeah, I'm just asking because I just, I trust John's opinion, and I'm just trying to decide whether or not, or understand for myself if that stop could be incorporated into the Dankert stop. I mean, what was your opinion from those discussions, Ronnie, for people walking through Gaslight, through the trails up to Dankert?
I'm ambivalent. I agree that I think it would be best if we could get people to go to Dankert Park. I don't think that they will. I think that they will still stand by the side of the road unless those bus stops that are there now are completely removed and give no attraction for pedestrians to stand there. That's the one thing we would have to do. The other, I do think that John's concern about the retaining wall is valid, because you could have a car traveling east to west or west to east and go out of their lane and slide into that ditch, and they would not be able to correct themselves out of that slope before they hit that wall. And like John said, the wall is not going to move, and there could be severe damage, injuries, and potential death if they're going fast enough. So I do have concerns about liability. I wondered if possibly we could just move that stop to the other side, to the south side of the road, and make one stop for both directions, where the bus would stop going east-west or west-east, or inbound or outbound, I guess is the way to say that. That way we've got plenty of flat space. It's away from that slope and would not require a retaining wall, and could be made potentially a little bit larger at approximately the same cost as building a small shelter with a retaining wall. So those are my thoughts. Randy, did you have something now that you're back?
Well, my question was what was their second option in case we did not approve of this? I'm assuming they had a backup plan. I was curious what that was.
We were proposing to put a shelter in the given location. That's the inbound direction for the route. So, and in general terms, that's where people stand to wait. In the outbound direction, people are generally getting off the bus, so they don't use the shelter on that side of the street, on the south side of the street. I guess the plan B is the do nothing plan and status quo reigns.
Interesting, because I think that still leaves your customers or the riders in some kind of a danger zone. You know, whether there's something over there across the street or not. But that's where we are. So it's interesting.
Guess, you know, I mean, we can evaluate the whole stop. We have gone through a process of evaluating the stop placement, the stop distance. This is a high ridership stop. You're asking people to, you know, not walk super far, but in situations where you have a fairly high ridership stop, it doesn't usually make sense to force them to walk, because it will create frustration. I mean, we can certainly evaluate that. I will say we have people in stops that are not ideal throughout the system. We operate in a challenging geography. There's hills. We operate in rural areas. There's no sidewalks in rural areas. There's lots of ditches. So this is not actually all that unusual. It is a little unfortunate that it's a high density residential area and we don't have a complete sidewalk network. And I think that's partially why we're having issues with bus stop placement here.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, thanks, Matt, and thanks, Megan. Trustees, how do we want to proceed with this? Do we want to continue talking about it, or do we want to try to vote on this tonight?
Regarding a vote tonight, I would be against it without getting legal counsel about liability, which
Okay.
John mentioned.
Natalie, do you have any input for that, or could you look into that for us?
I'll have to look into it for you and report back.
Okay.
I just have one last comment, which is that I totally hear you, John, and I definitely value your opinion and think that all of your concerns are extremely valid. I just don't love those folks having to stand on the side of the road the way they are now. And I don't want to make it harder for them to ride the bus. But I definitely think that your concerns are appreciated and understood by me.
I respect that, Carolyn, and I don't either. That whole situation, there's constant incidents, accidents on that corner up there. It's a high volume road. It's just not a good situation all the way around. And I think Ronnie and I talked, and I think we were pushing for a whole sidewalk network to complete that side in the next year or so. And we were putting it on our plan. And that's why I was thinking if we could just give it a little time to see what our networking system is going to be of the sidewalks, I think we might be much further ahead and to be able to push the pedestrians. I mean, we all want a walkable community, and sometimes we have to walk a little bit to get on a bus.
Well, if the trustees wanted to vote to fund the village putting in a sidewalk down that side of the street, I would be very much in favor of that vote. So if we could budget for that for the next year, and then perhaps build this a little bit further back on the other side of the sidewalk, if it's merited in 2 years, you definitely have my support for that proposition. You know, I'm never going to vote against the sidewalk, so.
Okay, we will pick up the sidewalk discussion and our budget discussion I'm not sure that it's in our budget this year, John, but we're still early in our process and we could add it in if we so choose. Again, thanks, Matt and Megan, and we will continue the discussion and let you know what we decide. And if we're going to have further discussions where you might have input, we will definitely invite you. And you're always welcome to join any of our meetings and sit in.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Moving on, our next topic is to authorize the mayor, which is me, to sign the land transfers and easements for the shops at Ithaca Mall. Peter Grossman is on, I believe. Yeah, there he is. Peter, can you give us a quick description of what this entails?
Sure. Happily, John's here too, and Mike. It entails a number of transfers of real property interests by the mall and one by the village to the mall. It starts with the final fee title transfer for Graham Road West from Trip Hammer down to the corner where the road goes to BJ's and then also turns to the south. It includes down there a boxed area where there's a turnaround. It includes a easement for future potential extension of a water line down the road toward the BJ's property and Target, which is intended someday to assist with pressure and flow and make it safer for fire safety down there. There is existing service, but it's sketchy or iffy as I understand it. It includes a reservation to the mall for their sign at the northeasterly corner of the Graham Road West parcel. As you head north on Trip Hammer, it's on the far side. If you visualize the road there on the other side of the street from the Thin Ice property. It's a footprint easement, so basically it's just on the location of the existing sign, together with a right of temporary access to it for ladders and repairs and things like that for the mall. It includes a transfer by the mall to the village of their rights under an old agreement by Carl Butler, the then owner of what is now the Northeast Pediatrics building and the Thin Ice property, and what was then the Mormon church across the street on the north side of Graham Road, with respect to opening the entire width of the original 60-foot right-of-way agreement between those three parties. We would be succeeding the mall as an interested party in that transaction. It includes heading south, correct me, John and Mike, if I'm forgetting something. There is a transfer, there's a turnaround, a snowplow turnaround at Catherwood, I think, an easement for the village. There's, as you go down to Pyramid Drive, presently, the village has a fairly substantial piece of land along the corner and up Pyramid Drive on the north side, and the mall owns the corner on the south side. The corner on the south side is where a substantial stormwater facility is located that turns stormwater originally north and then heading west, but it goes across Pyramid Drive first, and it pushes water into an area that is prone to flooding. We're proposing to swap parcels. The mall would get a portion of what the village has on the north side of Pyramid Drive that would hook into what they have already existing there that's been spoken of as the possible future hotel property. And then the village would acquire the piece at the corner, and around the corner to the south, a portion of it to improve the stormwater facilities. That I think has been discussed by the board, at least that improvement. The deed requires or creates an obligation on the part of the mall to maintain the ditch drainage all the way down to the south and then turning west until it hooks up with the westerly drainage, the storm sewer collector down there. And the idea is to pull water away from the parking lots and the mall itself. And as we come around the corner there and head back up toward the movie theaters, it includes the grant transfer by the mall to the village of what is, I always thought of as the village right-of-way and access way between the mall and Wedgewood Drive, the Shannon Park right-of-way. It'll allow the village to straighten out the path there and make it safer. It includes a reservation to the mall for some facilities they have within there. But in the long run, it's going to make for more a safer access way, and it'll be safer for the mutual facilities of the parties. It'll be hopefully separated more in terms of the utilities and the humans. So that's pretty much it. John, am I missing something here?
Oh, you did a really good job summarizing that. I wish it was only that easy doing all that other stuff, right?
So we have a bundle of papers. I think it's 4 deeds or 5 deeds, counting the one from us to the mall, and 2 sets of easement documents. Some of the deeds from the mall to the village would be an acceptance. The mayor needs to sign the documents that go along with those deeds, which are the transfer tax affidavit and the real property assessment form. Obviously, the village property would be exempt from taxes, and we're exempt from paying any transfer tax and the seller, the mall granting it, there's no consideration. So it's a no tax event, no cost event, just the recording fees, and the mall is paying all of those. That's pretty much it. The mayor will have a carpal tunnel by the time we're done.
Exercise here. Limber up here for the signature.
That would be what we're looking to authorize here.
Right. And
all of this derives from the planning board resolution.
Right.
Conditions to the approval of the subdivision.
Right. And this is like is this the final step or close to the final step of getting the subdivisions taken care of for the mall and everything?
This should do it. I mean, they will then have the subdivision and available for finally closing on their various pieces of that. Okay. So it's probably, it solves a number of issues that the village or John has had. John has a lot of issues, but with the mall in particular, and issues that have come up over the years, this is going to solve a lot of that for us. And it's also going to put the mall in a position where it can try to market its rescue.
Is there any, I guess we need to move to discuss this. Is there a motion and a second to allow me to sign these transfers and easements?
I'll move.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay. Is there any further discussion or questions for Peter?
I'm this is Randy. I'm curious if, and maybe this is John and Mike. I'm curious if you think any of these changes that we're enacting will help resolve the flooding of Target.
Well, I think a lot of it is going to definitely help. We're going to pull a lot of water away from the southern half of the mall. It's going to bypass the mall rather than go underneath a failing system that goes underneath the mall. It allows us more control over the intersection of Pyramid Drive and our stop sign situations and stuff like that. There's still a little issue that's going to be there at the end of, it's in back of the pediatrician's building there. There's still an outfall there that it may breach during rain events, but it allows us, and Mike can speak for this, I don't mean to speak for Mike, but it just allows us a little leverage that if they have a failing system, they have to maintain it with the stormwater agreement, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct. In the stormwater agreement, if they do not actively, take care and maintain the facility as far as the stormwaters go, the village can step in and charge them for that. That's something that we did not have in place before this.
It also gives us a
So
lot
if-
of pedestrian. Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
It also gives us a lot of pedestrian movement that we've been striving for over the years. It gives us a little piece of the walk at the corner of the YMCA. We reserved a future walk on the northwest corner of Pyramid Drive. It's going to be the northern branch of the loop road there. We reserved quite a little easement area to construct a walk. That was the best practice we could see that would allow pedestrians to have to fit the sidewalk in to make it ADA compliant. It allowed us to walk in back of the mall to connect that just a 50 or 75 foot section of private walk to the already existing village walk. It adds a street light there on the agreement. It adds a street light there. It allows us leverage to make sure they maintain their fences. This whole thing just smells like roses because we spent a long time doing it.
Well, I agree with all that, but do you think this will go anywhere towards solving the flooding of the Target? I don't think you answered that.
Yeah, I do believe so, because we're making them fix the retention systems out in back of the mall. And you honestly can't answer that, Randy, specifically on telling what kind of rain events and what kind of maintenance they do to their system. But Brent's going to oversee a lot of repairs that were needed to their system that may ultimately end the flooding issues that's been having at the mall in general. He has to make sure the weir systems in back that they're correctly dug out, and the berm maybe in back of Palmer Agnew's house and stuff like that. That was all supposed to be fixed in part of this system.
So we have some oversight to it. That's good. Thank you.
And Randy, also, some of the issues that we ran into, at least the last couple of times with Target, was a maintenance as far as going out. There was garbage that was blocking the drainage grates in the parking lot. And that's just a simple solution that would probably have prevented a lot of that flooding.
Wow. All right. Thank you. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all of those in favor of authorizing me to sign the land transfers and easements for the shops at Ithaca Mall, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Right. 4 out of 5, Jody.
Mr. Mayor, what, do you have availability tomorrow at any particular time we could get together?
Yeah, where?
At the village office?
Let me check my calendar. Just give me a one moment here.
Okay.
I never know from day to day. I'm good
Day
for
is it?
tomorrow.
Say it again.
I am good for tomorrow.
Okay.
What time is good for you, Peter?
Probably 11 or 1 would be
Let's try
better.
1 o'clock, please.
Okay. Okay, good. I'll put it
I'll
in.
I'll meet you there, and I'll bring several pens just in case.
Okay. I'll bring 2 notary stamps in case I run out of ink.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
thank you. Thanks, Peter, for everything you've done on this. It's been a lot
Yeah.
of work.
Oh, good. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. The next topic is to consider the Verizon's gross receipt tax audit recovery settlement agreement that everyone should have seen come by late today. Jody, can you give us a little bit of a description about this? You did for me this afternoon, so.
Yeah, so the settlement is, we did that CompuTel and they found people that weren't paying, and we had that whole settlement that we got. And he's also been working with Verizon. They've sent over an agreement to settle. I sent it over to Natalie, who made a few corrections, which were in the blue that in the copy that I emailed to you. So I did email Mike to find out what the amount would be other than the settlement amount. And he hasn't gotten back to me on that. I also, it said in there that it was a 40% fee for him for doing this. And I thought originally it was 33% that he lowered it to. So that was another question I had for him. So I'm still waiting to hear back.
Okay. Thank you, Jody.
Mhm.
Did anyone have any questions about the original agreement or Natalie's revisions to that? I looked at the revisions and I couldn't find any that I disagreed with. Natalie, you did a good job. Quick job. But anyone else? Okay, Jody, why don't we put this on our next meeting then, and we'll have information from Mike and we can decide whether or not I'll sign that one for us. Okay. Thank you. The next one is consider the recreation partnership agreement for 2023 to 27. I guess this is an every 5-year event, Simon, from what you said. Were there significant changes to the agreement, or was it pretty much the same and we just have to agree to it one more time?
Yeah, there were no changes to the agreement. It's exactly the same, just changed dates.
Okay.
So the rec partnership isn't voting on this until the end of April. I think it's around April 22nd or 23rd. So we do
Right.
have time. So if people haven't had a chance to read it, there is time to do that. It basically just states how the rec partnership operates, who the members are, how the budget is dispersed amongst the different municipalities.
Right.
That's what the role of the officers are, what the role of the members are. That's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward.
Right.
So if everyone gets a chance to read it, unless you have any major questions, it's just standard. Every 5 years they send out the same agreement.
I guess, would people feel comfortable voting for this tonight? Or would you like to have time to read it? Carolyn? Oh, Randy says vote tonight. How about you, Carolyn? You okay with it? Okay.
Yeah.
I fully support the recreation partnership. I think it's a great thing. I know that when I first started as a trustee, Phil Dankert called me down to his house and made sure that we continued to support that, because he was a big mover in the beginnings of that, I believe. And I think it's a great thing. It does. We do pay into it every year, and we probably might not have a lot of participation, but it and the Joint Youth Commission are the same. We're supporting youth in our general communities within the county. And I think they're both great programs. This is for recreation. JYC is for helping youth learn job skills and get in terms of how to employ themselves eventually.
Actually, out of all of the members, the village has the highest participation rate in the rec partnership outside of the city and the town of Ithaca. So
Excellent, Simon. That's
considering
great.
that we're also a part of the town of Lansing rec programs, and our kids can participate in those programs,
That's
we
great.
do really well with rec partnerships. So it's well worth it for the village.
That's great. Thanks, Simon. All right. We'll need a motion and a second. I will move that we consider this signing this agreement. I just need a second.
Second.
Carolyn seconds. Is there any further discussion or questions about this? If not, all those in favor of agreeing or letting me sign the agreement for the recreation partnership, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. That looks 4 out of 5, Jody. Thank you all. Okay. Now to the lengthy discussion. The next topic is our budget discussion. Jody and I got together this afternoon, and Jody did most of the work, and I just nodded my head and agreed with her. But we did talk about some subjects. So she sent out her revised version of the draft input for our budget to everyone. And so we just need to talk. Jody, do you want me to show that on my screen, or do you want to share that?
You can, go ahead.
Okay, let me open it up and share it. Okay, can everyone see this? This is, Jody, this one's not showing the colors that you put into it. Is that okay?
Nope, because you and I went through it, so everything became black.
Okay, all right. So, all right. I expected it to be red. Okay, so this is just a kickoff, a starter. I think we received most of the inputs. There are still a few outstanding that we're waiting for input from people outside of the village, but it's a good start. Do we want to go down through these line by line, Jody, or just the general areas?
Has everybody reviewed it? Does anybody have any questions? Maybe we should go that direction.
Okay.
I know that one thing is there are no updated salaries in there. Therefore, the benefits aren't updated either, just because it all depends on the amount of salary. So those are all just left in it this year's. We did go through, added all of the stuff from the engineer. I did have a question for Natalie. I didn't receive anything from you guys. Is the rate still $250?
Yeah, we're still $250 an hour.
So yeah, if you could just send me a budget letter over.
Okay.
That'd be great. So, yeah, this is pretty easy, well, at least to me, because it's just a lot of the stuff is the same every year. We just have to take into consideration right now the global issues that are going on right now, and you know, trying to plan and know what the future is, it's kind of iffy. So we're a little bit conservative. But yeah, there's still some things we need to figure out what's going to be for sure done this year, and encumbering stuff, and if we're going to, you know, rebudget for stuff or rebudget for stuff. So does anybody have any questions?
Well, we were
last.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
you go, Ronnie.
No, well, I was just going to say that Jody said we were conservative. We were conservative on revenue, but we were very loose with costs, because we're concerned that the costs are just going to skyrocket for a little while. So we might be overzealous in assigning costs where we're not sure, but we're conservative in the revenue a little bit. Go ahead, Simon.
Oh, actually, just coming off of that, first of all, so because a lot of the trainings were up, and like I know that your line item there, Ronnie, for the mayor, the miscellaneous contractual, that was up quite a bit over last year. Is that just because you're anticipating increased costs for those sorts of things, increased travel costs and?
Yes. Yeah, we will be
Okay.
sending hopefully we will be sending the 2 new trustees after the election to training and NICOM's fall conference. And there's a chance I will go too. I'm going to wait and see what the topics are. And just, so yeah, it went up a little bit.
Yeah. And then Jody, with the salaries, I thought last year we did, pretty much an across the board 3% increase. Is that standard, or is that just something then that we did last year? Because it's not in this budget here.
Yeah, no, normally we do a straight across the budget increase. Unless there's like certain circumstances. I think one of the circumstances this year would be for Mike to get a little more because he did pass his civil service test and was a little lower than, if someone had already taken it. So that's just one of the considerations we might want to look at.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. I thought we just did an across the board, so that's something that I think we should take into consideration doing that again. And just from speaking to Mike the other day, is there a possibility then that Brian's salary might have to go up a little bit if he has to do extra inspections because of changes in regulations?
I don't think we need to raise it this year because he isn't actually using all his hours right now. But if it maybe in the following year.
Okay.
We're gonna find out an awful lot come beginning of next year. As far as if he's gonna have to have more hours or not, so.
Okay. So that would be worked into our next budget then, most likely. You'll notice that there are times when Jody and I were quite certain, like this line under engineer, 25,000 from Patapsco and St. Joseph. We thought, Jody thought that we were doing this in this year. And so we're not sure about that. So those are the types of questions that we'll have to answer going forward.
And there's a lot also going to be a budget transfer from this year to next year for like the sidewalks and the roads like Dart Drive, Oakcrest, Graham Road West.
So how it works is if you decide that you're going to encumber that, that means you move the money over to the next year, and that's a journal entry. If you decide that you want to rebudget for it, that's totally different. And anything you don't spend in this year becomes part of your appropriated fund balance. So that is how much money from this year's budget that we didn't use that get allocated to the next year.
If they're doing an audit of that, is that if we have a lot of fund balance left over like that, is that looked upon unfavorably?
The problem is if you don't get, if you keep budgeting for projects and you're not getting them done, they're like, okay, wait a minute, you're budgeting for this again and again and again. But as long as I have a good answer for them, for instance, we couldn't do it because the town of Lansing, that hasn't gone through, it's, in the agreement situation. If it's material, right now, because of the situation, we can't get material, as long as we are trying to do it, it'll be okay.
Okay.
I think there will be a lot of flexibility within the next, within this year and next year, possibly longer, due to all of the impacts from COVID impacting the supply chain materials, and with the ongoing war in Europe, the supply chains and other are going to be interrupted or slowed down for other reasons. So there will be a lot of external reasons, but we just need to try to control what we can and get things done on time, what we can. But we just have to have a valid reason for not being able to complete. and we'll track that and report it as we need to. All right, I'm just going to kind of move down through here and see if anyone, if it triggers a comment or a question from someone. The traffic control, John wants to, we're going to replace the pedestrian heads for the crosswalk at Uptown and Warren Road and install, we're going to test a real-time camera on the traffic signal at Warren and Uptown. And that would allow the DPW department, anyone actually, but specifically the DPW department, to keep an eye on that road, that intersection, to see if there's any snow, ice, or anything on the road. But it will also give citizens or residents, anyone who wants to, who can tap into this, it will be a public camera to see the conditions of the road. So, for instance, John and his crew, it might not be snowing at their house, but here in the village, we're getting slammed, and they'll know by looking at this camera that it's looking bad, and they'll have to come in. On the other hand, it may be snowing there and not here, and then it will be a toss-up as to whether they need to come in or not. It just gives them more information. Let me see here. John's requesting a new Bobcat and a new work pickup. John, I know that I asked you to look to see if there is a hybrid version of a pickup truck. Is there one available right now?
No, there is a prototype out for the 3/4 tons. There is some hybrid half tons, and they're working on, either a hybrid or full electric 3/4 tons, but not at this time. I don't see them with a shortage of everything right now that they'll be out in the near future. It might be a ways out.
Right. We just keep our eyes and ears open, and when one comes available that would do the job, we'll go for it and go green on at least that part of our fleet. The heavy equipment, the heavy trucks and so forth, that's way off. There's just no way right now.
Is that standard, John, that you just surplus the vehicles after about 5 years?
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, Simon, who knows when we're going to get the truck. We may get it towards the tail end of this budget cycle. But about what we noticed a trend in our service, the miles on our vehicles are about three times less than what a normal person is, but they have the same hours and the same stress on them. That's what they usually say in the municipal side of things. But about that 5 years, you start to see rust bubbles on the fenders and stuff, and that's where you have the severe drop in depreciation. So we've been able to keep our the cost of trading down, and we've been able to maintain the 5-year warranty as well. They have a 3-year 36,000 bumper to bumper, but they usually have 5-year 100,000 mile powertrain. So once you get beyond that, then you start having problems.
John, Jody and I noticed on this A5110.4 that the striping of roads, the cost tripled from last year to this year. Is that due to materials or availability, or?
No, we haven't done striping in the last couple of years. One, because of the rain we had last year, and then the COVID has backed all the stripers up. They're more stuck on the state roads. So we've neglected some of the striping in the village. It's still there, but you'll notice they're real faint right now.
Yeah.
We want to freshen them all back up. So it's going to be a big striping year for us. And hopefully we can even get a vendor at this point.
All right. Graham Road West is in here. Dart Drive Road.
The 3 projects we're going to do in-house this year is Watapka, hitting it off in the spring before our new fiscal budget. And then we're going to go to Dart Drive sidewalk. And then we're going to move on to Graham Road West. Hope to get all 3 of them done this year. Those are the in-house projects besides the sanitary sewer benefit area
Right.
and the water line reconstruction on Brown Road and Warren Road.
Okay. For the Greenway, Carol and I were talking, we would like to see trails within Shannon Park, Ned Hickey Park. And John and his crew are looking to repair and install the trail or behind the mall. But that's once we sign the easements and agreements and so forth. We will own that and we can straighten it up and make it a little bit cleaner. So these are the costs for those trails that John estimated. We've got tree replacements in here, several places. One is here for $8,000. This is the tree buffer at Ned Hickey Park. Those are the trees that separate the park from the residents. I think that is 2 leaps away. The trees there, a lot of those trees just aren't doing well. We weren't sure if the 8,000 was a little high, John, but we left it in at 8.
I'll be honest with you, actually, that's the number that come in from Cuba Landscape. I bumped it up a little bit because I thought he was a little short on trees. I think he needed to go east and west a little bit more because if we're gonna make that an active part, we need to isolate that 2 lease way.
Okay. If anyone sees something they want to discuss or ask, be sure to stop me. I'm going through, or tell me that I'm going through too fast. Here are more, beautification has more tree planting. This is our standard community tree planting program that's not used very often. And we can probably squeeze some trees into the contract for maintaining our landscaping around the village. And we've got the employee benefits. That's pretty standard.
Those
And
aren't
that-
updated yet.
Yeah, that will be tied to the salaries, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then we've got transfers, general reserve. This numbers probably are not final, but they're there.
Now, what that is showing you is what our balance in
Oh,
in
okay.
our general reserve,
Easy.
in our park and rec reserve. We don't know what we're gonna be transferring to general reserve or taking out of it. That's kind of the line item we use to balance our budget.
Right, this is where they're, okay. Okay, revenue. We expect revenue to go up.
That has changed slightly because there was a BOMAX adjustment done by the assessment department, but it's just a
Yes.
difference of $300.
Right. The sales tax, Jody and I were discussing, the county we've received a substantial amount of sales tax even through this last year. The county believes that to be the result of the state finally sending out the sales tax from online sales. And it made the county a lot healthier, and it gave us a substantially higher amount that we've received this year. If we're about halfway through this year, we're at 460, we could be close to 900,000. But with the way things are going in the world, we backed off to an estimate of 750,000. This is where we're conservative.
Ronnie, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, John.
The ARPA money, is that in the revenue side somewhere? And if it is, we did talk about kind of using that for the water system because our water system is the least healthiest of the
Yes.
3 main accounts. Do they have to put that in the revenue side on that as well, or no?
We were told not to budget for that.
Okay.
Do not budget that money, but we have discussed it. Yes, we are going to use it for the water project. what happens when our water project finally goes out to bid is it will all, the money we'd allocated in our budget plus the ARPA funds will all go into the capital projects fund and be accounted for there.
Okay, thank you.
We've received half of that money. We should receive the other half within the summer. So that will be good. $370 something, I think, $70,000 to go toward that. So a nice little bonus. Here we got some revenue from the sale of the old Bobcat and our current pickup. Okay, water expenses. We finished the general. We're now to water expenses. We got some engineering numbers from TG Miller today. Jody put those in. And potentially encumbering $400,000 for the Brown Road.
No, I think we're encumbering 516. But we will be budgeting 400,000 if we do encumber that amount.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And Jody's put in the water reserve based on water revenue. I'm sorry, based upon our new rates. Sewer expenses. Engineering again, TG Miller for our upcoming projects and I&I repairs. We're going to the GPS unit to provide as-built info. There was a question, John. Will we start doing our own? Will we start collecting our own as-built info? TG Miller doesn't do that for us, or
the problem is we can't get nobody does it for us now except for TG Miller, and we have to keep measurements and everything, and we can get more accuracy by putting the GPS unit on the fitting as they go underground, and their survey crew is so backed up that's it's best to keep it this way. We had a little discrepancies on the last go around with the water line on getting the as-built in.
Okay.
So we want to. And we also can use this to locate services too. When we have snow on the sewer system, on the sewer mains, I can go to TG Miller and they can pull up, since our sewer infrastructure has all been mapped by survey grade equipment, they can give us meets and bounds on longitude and latitude, and we can come in there and we can locate sanitary sewers, manhole covers, when we do our own locates and stuff. So this is really going to make it a lot easier for us. It should speed and accurate, make things more accurate.
Okay, and you have more control over when you get the information too.
That is correct.
Okay. The Town of Lansing Sewer Project, that's a sanitary sewer project that John was mentioning earlier also. The cost of that is obviously going to be increasing due to materials. So we're looking at negotiating with the town of Lansing to help offset some of this cost, because it will be primarily benefiting them. It does benefit a small portion of the village. We still have the $900 something thousand dollars coming from commercial interests within the town, but that plus our part, with the costs going up, we're going to try to negotiate with the town to get them to pay, and also to help with future maintenance if it needs it, because they are getting a lot of benefits. So we will start those negotiations as soon as we can. Get with Ed and or members of their town board to talk about that. Yeah, there's the money from the commercial entity and town of Lansing to help with that project. And this is what we will be deciding within our budget. And we will have final numbers here at the end of it all. So this is our starting point. Everyone needs to look through it and mark up questions, and we will discuss this again, obviously, at our next meeting on the 17th at noon. We'll get into it a little deeper and hopefully polish it up so that we can start scheduling a public hearing down the road in time. So the
If we're
calendar,
discussing, sorry, Ronnie, if we're
Okay.
discussing an across the board salary increase, does that need to be executive session at a future meeting? Or if we're discussing a specific salary as well?
if it's general, I don't think it has to be an executive session. It might need to be if it's in one individual or
Bernie.
sorry.
General discussions, I don't think should call for executive session. But specific, yeah, so I agree with your assessment.
Or specific employees. If we have more than one even, the executive sessions would deal with specific employee information and salaries. So we might have an executive session for a couple of these, Brian and Mike, obviously. And anyone else that turns up within the discussions.
So we should just look at this now and then do that at a future meeting, just mark up
Yes.
what we see. Okay.
Yes, so we'll just drill into this. Since you got this so late today, and it's late, look through these numbers and raise questions. If something seems to be missing as far as your project, bring that up too. If it's going to push over the budget, push the budget higher than we would like, then we might look at trading off projects or postponing projects, substituting projects for the upcoming year down to 2 years from now, just to get the money where we want to be. I would like to try to keep our tax rate the same right now, which is $1.50. There's also a possibility we could go down, but I don't think I want to do that this year. Things are the economic and the financial factors related to all of our suppliers and contractors and so forth are so dynamic right now. I wouldn't want to lower the rates because we might need the money later. So, if we continue to get really good sales tax revenue and the costs and availability of goods and so forth and shipping, et cetera, stabilizes, at some point we might look at dropping the tax rate a little bit, but that'll be a future discussion. But for this year, let's work toward not increasing our tax rate. Just keep that in the back of your mind. So I will stop sharing. Okay. Thank you all. And Jody, thanks to you. And I know John, thanks to everyone really who helped put all this information and get it to Jody. If there's anything you owe Jody, get it to her sooner rather than later. And we can get it in time for our next discussion. So if there's anything missing. So the next item is mayor's comments. I have no comments other than to thank you all for your work, and I've just done that. General discussion. Does anyone have anything that they would like to mention? Jody, I know you want to remind us about our articles for the newsletter. March 22nd, is that close of business or?
I want it in the morning on the 22nd. Because
Close of business,
basically what
March.
happens is we will set the public hearing on the 21st for the budget. And I want to get the newsletter out as soon as I can so that people have enough time to actually be able to attend the public hearing.
Okay. Okay. So be thinking of your articles to write for the next, our spring newsletter, spring 2022 newsletter, and be working on those and get those to Jody by close of business on March 21st so that she has it by the 22nd or midnight, you know, if you want to stay up and write late, that's fine too. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm just
Carolyn?
thinking about sidewalks in terms of what John was saying about hoping to see one. What's the name of that street? It's not Sheridan Drive. What is that little hook called by the mall?
Uptown Road, Uptown.
That's Uptown.
Yep.
Okay. So, Ronnie, you had sent me an email a while back asking me if I wanted to join the Greenway Committee. And then I think we also had a discussion that at some point, maybe the Greenway Committee would also be a future sidewalk planning committee.
It could
And
be
I just
part of
wanted
it.
to propose maybe to the trustees that there is a future sidewalk committee, possibly it's the Greenway Committee, and then we decide on what's going to be the next project after the completion of Dart Drive. And I think that there should be a next project. So, are you still looking for people for the Greenway Committee? Do you think that should also be the Sidewalk Committee, or do you think they should be separate?
I think that they should be separate, but the Greenway Committee might want to participate. One or several of the members would be. I would obviously be on there if need be. I would be glad to be on there. It would be you and I and anyone else in the Greenway Committee. Plus, there are people on the planning board who might be interested too.
So then I propose that we form a committee. I don't know what's involved with that, but a planning committee to decide on the future sidewalk projects. Jody?
I think you should just have one committee. I don't think you need all these different committees. I think Greenway together, this would all just be input that the trustees say and planning board say, hey, we want this as part of our capital plan. So I don't think we need to create a lot of committees for this. That's
Well, what I'm trying
we
to
haven't done in
emulate,
the future.
what I'm trying to emulate is the 20-year plan that was implemented to put the sidewalks in that we have now.
And
where
that was
there
part of the
would-
Greenway.
Then we would create a map and we'd have priorities and we'd step by step add sidewalks that are in the best interest of the village in a logical manner.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm happy for that to be Greenway if that's okay. And if you still need somebody, Ronnie, then I would be happy to join.
Okay.
But I'd like to see that to going forward in the best way. And what do people think is the best way to do that? I guess Randy and Simon, you're both leaving, so maybe you just like however you want to do it, Carolyn, that's fine.
Now, what we've done in
Ouch.
the past is it was part of the comprehensive plan. So when you get to that, it's also there. We have internally here at the village, we have a capital plan, which, you know, we plan out things. We don't,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? So I guess we
Totally.
just don't know about that. So you're trying to create something that we already do.
Yeah, no, exactly. I would definitely want it to be planned out. So I just want it to be like agenda planned out. So maybe the Greenway Committee should then start to tackle this.
We can start talking about it. Yes, I think that's a good idea. We can start talking about it because we've kind of dealt with trails and sidewalks before. And then we can make a recommendation that after Dart Drive, you know, we can go out 2 or 3 projects. If they're small enough, we might be able to do several projects in a budget year.
Mhm.
But if it's a large one, it could take longer. So we'll need to kind of lay those out and decide what we want to do.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll do that within the Greenway Committee. We'll come back to the Board of Trustees with recommendations.
Okay, well, let me know if you're still looking for somebody or if you found somebody, that's also great.
We have plenty of room on the Greenway Committee and you're welcome to join. We're going to lose Monica,
Okay.
obviously, when we lose Simon. So she will probably be able to participate for a little while until the events and all of the chaos of their move catch up with them.
Okay.
But when I schedule the next Greenway Committee, I will put you on the mailing list and
Okay.
we
And
can.
you do have to make sure that you don't have a trustee quorum on that board.
Right. I think it will just be myself and Carolyn.
Then that's okay.
I think we're okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's my comment.
Thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else?
Yep. Quickly, the rec partnership wants all its municipal members set at their next meeting, which I think is on the 22nd of April. So they need a letter from each municipality saying such and such is our appointee. So I don't know how you want to proceed because it's currently me. I don't know if someone else wants to take it over. I don't know whether I should reach out to one of the potential new trustees. Otherwise, just keep it simple. Just send a letter saying that I'm the appointee. There's no rules that even after I leave the village, I still can't be the appointee, or we couldn't swap over to someone else then. But we just
I
need
think that
something
that's
for the
better.
next meeting.
Because they won't be formally trustees until after the election, which is beyond that date. So let's go ahead. We can write a letter that you are our representative, and I mean, we can warn them that it's your time with them may be short, but that we will appoint a future trustee or someone from our staff. Jody.
We usually do that at our organizational meeting, which is the first meeting in May. So you, Simon, are on there until then. And then at that point, if you want someone else, then we would change.
Yeah, we would
Okay.
change at that point.
Could you send me the minutes from the meeting then? Otherwise, I could look it up. If that was the last, because they said they don't need the letter if it's just meeting minutes that says that I'm the appointee. So if that was the
I send
meeting
that
back
to
in
them
May.
usually each
Okay.
year. So they have it. I mean, unless their year is different than our year and they're requesting it at a separate time. Usually they just take my resolution.
Okay, I'll just check with them,
Okay.
and otherwise I'll pull up those meeting minutes if there's an issue, and if not,
Mhm.
we'll be in touch.
We will be the first meeting in May of 2021.
Yep.
So so it's easy to find.
Mhm.
Any other topics? Okay, thanks everyone. It's been a longish meeting, but we've got a lot done, and I appreciate everyone attending. And I will see you next Thursday. And I guess all those in favor of adjourning?
Well, you have to
Great.
first and second.
I don't know why.
I motion.
It's late.
Second,
Simon, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Who moved? Sorry, Randy?
Andy,
I did.
Randy moved, Simon
Randy.
seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say bye-bye.
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 all right, everyone.
Thanks, Natalie, Peter, everybody.